Welcome back to the channel, guys. So this is going to be video update 6 in the reimagining of my BNSF themed HO scale model railroad. In this video, we're going to take care of getting the layout wired, and we are going to construct some bridge abutments out of some MDF. And then I got another small project that includes one of these flat cars. That's all coming up. All right, guys, so let's talk electrical. So in a past video, I talked about trying to salvage the main bus line that I had that I used to power the layout. But after looking at it again, this is just like a 3-foot section. It has way too many of the suitcase connectors. And I'm going through all this work. An extra $25 for new wire was not a deal breaker. So I bought a roll of 18 gauge wire in black and in red, and I've ran a new main bus for the whole layout. So as I go to work installing these feeder wires from the track to the main bus, I'm salvaging wire in between those suitcase connectors. So it's not a total loss. So lots of model owners will install a set of feeders about every 3 feet along the main line, or basically a set of feeders for every stick of flex track that you install. I've done that in the past, but since I've soldered all of my rail joints on this and I don't have a bunch of sidings and that kind of thing, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna install about 8 sets of feeders for the whole upper deck of the layout, which is about 40 feet overall. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna locate them in tunnels and in spots where I have scenery blocks where you won't see the connection here. It's all gonna get painted and detailed in anyways, but they're kind of hard to hide overall. But if I can hide them in a tunnel, nobody's ever gonna see them. So I went ahead and made all of the soldered connections to the rails through the whole layout. So now we'll make the connections for our feeder wires to the main bus. So the first thing we want to do is make sure that all of our feeder wiring is back in the bench work. So I'll do that. And then you can cut it to whatever length you need. You don't have to have a bunch of extra wire. Pretty easy. But I'm just using these suitcase connectors. These are pretty handy. You slip it over the main bus. You run your feeder wire in there, and then you use a pair of pliers to drive this wedge down. It makes an electrical connection, then you close it up, and that's it. So I'll get these installed, and then I'll come back. So I'm just running some trains now just to make sure that I don't have any electrical problems. This is the second or third loop around, and I haven't had any issues at all. So I think I'm gonna be okay. I do want to show you one other thing electrically that I did. Is on the lift out, I just soldered a couple of feeder wires up to the rail through the back side of this end here, the short end, and ran these wires back up into that French cleat connection. I did the same thing here, and I'll pull this out. And you can see, here's the wires here up on that French cleat. So when I drop the other side of the French cleat, it just makes that electrical connection, and I'm ready to run trains easy peasy. So the next thing I want to show you guys is how I built these bridge abutments out of MDF, and I recorded that earlier, so I'll show you that footage now. Okay, so you can see I got my 2 bridges mocked up here. I have it in another location. I have another bridge, plate girder bridge that's mocked up on another part of the layout. I did the same thing there. I took some of that scrap 7/16 OSB that I use for the sub roadbed construction, and I plated within the bench work. That'll give me a little more verticality at the bridge locations and the opportunity to cut some of this sub fascia down the road. These are just very loosely mocked up right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a few measurements, and I'm going to go out in the shop and build me a couple of temporary bridge abutments to be able to attach to this plate that I put in here, but really to hold the bridges in place so I can finish the track work through this section of the layout. So here's what I came up with. I used some 1/2-inch MDF. I've got 2 pieces here. I've got it all clamped right now, and the glue is drying. These would be fairly prototypical for an abutment for this style of bridge. You'd have your bearing point here, and then you'd have this upper portion that would kind of frame the steel all together to lock everything in. So these took me about 10 minutes of shop time. I just cut these out on my table saw, nothing too fancy. This MDF will be great if these end up being the permanent abutments, because this stuff mills really nice with a router. You can scratch it with a utility knife or X-Acto knife, so if you wanted to score it and put a brick pattern or something like that in there, or even just glue sheet styrene onto it if you wanted to wrap it or something like that. So gives me lots of options here. I'll show you what I did with the plate girder bridge down at this end. So for the plate girder bridge that's going to set in here, it's going to share this abutment with the truss bridge. And what I did is I took an extra 1/4 inch off of this portion of the abutment. I carried that elevation over to this abutment here. And when we install the Atlas plate girder bridge in here, it'll set like so. And then I took some old Caboose Industry ground throws that I had, and I kit bashed the heck out of them and glued them up to the bridge to give me some bearing points, basically some feet for the bridge. I think it's a pretty cool detail that'll look pretty neat once this is all installed. So I'm gonna set this back aside while the glue dries. Once the glue dries and I can take the clamps off of here, we can start getting these set, and then we can fill in the scenery here and start building that down the road. All right, so the last thing I want to share with you guys in this video is how I did the weathering on these 4 Tyco flat cars that I rehabbed in a previous video using just some craft paint here, a burnt sienna, some contrast paint from Citadel called Rattling Grime, which I thought was fitting for a railroad, and then a couple of Vallejo colors, Rust and Flat Earth. So this is one of the Tyco flat cars that I redid in a previous video where we kind of upgraded them to modernize them for our new modern railroad. And I gave them a coat of paint. I put new trucks and wheels and knuckle couplers, some new decals. But this is kind of where I stopped in that video. And I'll show you, I went a little further with a couple of them here, where I put some weathering on them. The decks on them, I've done a lot of work to that, and they just look really cool. Here's another one that I did. I got the weathering again. This one here though, I didn't go as crazy on the deck, and I think I'd want to put another wash on it. That yellow's still shining through a little bit. On this first one I did, I colored the whole deck a really light tan first, and then I went through and did the weathering. On this one here, I used that light tan again, and there's a couple spots where the yellow kind of shines through a little bit. So I think these two I'm gonna hit with another coat of wash, and then let me set these aside. And then this one here, I'll show you how I do one from start to finish. So here's one that we'll do from scratch. So I'm using some Vallejo acrylics. This is just Flat Earth. It's just a light tan color. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna get a brush, and these brushes that I'm using are not high dollar brushes. So what I'm gonna do is just take my time here. I'm gonna start kind of in the middle and work my way down. I'm gonna just get a coat of this on everything. If you got an airbrush, that will work good. I just don't feel like getting mine out for just the one car. I'm just gonna paint this on here. Work my way down the whole car. We're just trying to get a base. Try to cover up that yellow just a little bit. We don't have to cover it up completely, but we just want to cover it up just a little bit. And I think another thing that would work really well for this is hitting these with a coat of dull coat would probably help the paint grab a little bit. This has a sheen to it. I don't remember using a gloss, but it looks like it has a little bit of a sheen to it. So any sort of dull coat or matte finish would be better for the paint to grab to while you're putting these first layers on. But it doesn't really matter. We're just trying to dull back that yellow. We just want a light tan color so that it looks like wood, and then we're gonna go through and we're gonna we're gonna add a bunch of age to it. Yeah, that dulls that yellow back. So what we'll do is we'll let that dry for a few minutes. I'll use a hair dryer. You could dry that back a little bit more, but we'll just let that dry for a few minutes. Then we'll come back, and what we'll do is we'll start adding some of the, let me grab this one here. We'll start adding some of these darker boards, and I'll show you how I do that. So I'm gonna use a little bit of the Vallejo dark brown I've put here, and a little bit of burnt sienna that I've put here. And if you look at some of the, I'll pull this one here up. So this one, you can see the multiple color boards here, and that's the dark brown and that's the burnt sienna. It just adds variety here, and I'm just kind of randomizing it. And then here's the other one I did where I got to where I was getting kind of tired, so I just started painting 2 boards at a time, and it still had a pretty good effect. So depends, I guess, on the brush you have and how steady of a hand that you have. So, but I just try to come in here, find a board, and just work down it. And it doesn't have to be perfect. That's the other thing I found. Once you hit it with these washes, it's gonna clean a lot of this stuff up. You want it to be reasonably good, but if you get too crazy with it, just paint 2 boards. But we're just trying to be random. A few boards here and there. And I'll just get this half. Then what I'll do is I'll just flip it over and I'll do the other half. So there's half. Just flip it over and do the other half. So we'll do one more down here. So just randomizing it, that's it for that. So I'll clean this brush out, and then we'll find some others that we'll do with the burnt sienna, and then once that's done, I'll come back. And here I am finishing up the burnt sienna, but you can see we're just trying to make it look a little more random is all. That is it. Once we hit this with a wash, this is gonna look more like this. And then if we don't like that, we'll hit it with a second wash. But I think with one wash, it'll work out just fine. The other thing we'll do is we'll use a little bit of this rust color. We don't need a whole lot of it. And we'll use it to help with our weathering here. And it doesn't take very much. This looks pretty cool wherever you got some scraping of the paint or anything like that. You just kind of dribble it on wherever you think there would be a little rust. And you can always dab this back again. You can put it on as thick as you want or as thin as you want. I think thinner's better because you can always go back and add more. Once you get it on there, it's pretty hard to get off. It's real easy to kind of overdo it. So, little bit at a time and just building the layers up works pretty good, in my opinion. Okay, so it's been about 10 minutes. It doesn't take these acrylic paints long to dry at all. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna go over it with this contrast color. Again, we'll work from the middle and then just pull it out. And you can see how it just darkens everything. And if it's more than you want, you can dab it back off. And if it's not enough, just add a little more. Here we go. Just putting on the contrast color. I'm just using a flat brush, nice soft bristles, so it gets down in the little nooks and crannies. And then along the edge, I'll make sure that I get lots of that contrast in there. Really grub that up. Then I'll spin it around and I'll work the other side. And again, you can get this as dark or as light as you want, whatever you want for a preference, but you can always go back and add multiple layers. That's the best way to do it. It's real easy to overdo stuff. It's also real easy to just put multiple layers. The hardest part is that patience. So just start off real light. And then look at this. You can already see the multiple colors here like we had. So I'll just keep working this the rest of the way down, and we'll see what it looks like when it's all done. And if you think you went too dark somewhere, just get you a paper towel and just start dabbing it off. It's pretty easy that way. This stuff's pretty user-friendly. There you go. That's gonna look awesome up on the layout. All right, guys, so here's our 4 flat cards all finished off. I hit them with a coat of matte clear finish to seal in all the weathering work that we did because I was real happy with it. And Locomotive 2150 is already pulling them out on the main line because I'm controlling him. Anyways, I hope you guys are enjoying this video series. I hope you like the content that we're putting out. If you are, hit that like button. And if you want to follow along, subscribe to our channel for future videos. Shout out to all of our subscribers. We appreciate the guys who've been with us since day one. It's been just over a year and a half. And we appreciate all the newcomers as well. So thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for your support. And happy railroading.